to be socially distant. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Zoning and Comprehensive Plan Amendment hearing for Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. Let's begin this morning with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay. Before we get to the cases on the agenda this morning, we did receive a late update yesterday about a previous case that was in litigation. And Michael, I wanted you to share that update with us.
Thank you. Michael Jacob, Deputy County Attorney. Yes, this is my last opportunity to speak with the board as a whole. We did receive the special magistrate's recommended order in the case of Cicada Seed versus Lee County. We received assistance from an intervener, Mack & Bell, this Ron Inge's company, with regards to the case. I wanted to let the board know that the special magistrate found that the board's decision in revising map 14 in the mining regulations was in compliance with the comprehensive plan and state statute. She found that there were no internal inconsistencies with the board's adoption. Also, she found that testimony provided by Mr. Stewart and Mr. Spakowski were unavailing and did not provide any inconsistencies. She also found that after the adoption of the 2019 amendments that the county's regulations still monitor and appropriately regulate mining, and that the arguments based that there were no mining regulations after your adoption had no merit. I just wanted to give you that brief update, let you know they do have the opportunity to appeal if they should choose. We feel very confident in our defense of any appeal if it is raised. However, just want to let you know that the board was found in compliance and that your regulations, once the appeal process is run, will become effective.
So the county prevailed, and the ALJ basically said that we made the correct decision.
Correct, and that your decision was based on appropriate data and analysis, and that it was consistent with state law to do what you did.
Very good. Do we have any questions for Michael on that case before we move on? Commissioner Pendergrass?
Michael, what's the appeal process at the timeline before they decide to appeal or not to appeal?
Well, they have 14 days, maybe 13 now, to make that decision.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for the update.
You're welcome.
Chairman, if
Yes,
I could, I read this order several times last night, and this is a very involved case. I know the county was a couple of years it went on with this case, actually more than that. But this last year, this case is really troublesome because these people that were involved with this case, petitioners, actually even accused our staff of misconduct, accused this board of misconduct to the point where there was stalking going on, putting things in our mailbox, violating the process here, the code and everything. And I'd like to make a motion, since we're all together here, we're not going to be together until August, to direct our county administration staff and our HR, our PR staff to use all available media resources to get this information out, how the county prevailed in this case, and all the information within the case too, about making sure we tell the public. I think the public should know, after being told by a group for a year that the county was wrong and our staff was providing misconduct, we need to tell the truth, what the judge said here. So I'd like to make a motion that we use our resources through social media to put that out from the county side.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have a second for that? Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Very good. So with that motion, we would probably need public comment on that motion as well then before we take board action. So let me open that up. On the Cicada Seed case, does anybody want to speak in public comment then as to the Cicada Seed case and the ruling and the motion that's on the floor? Cicada Seed. Okay. We'll go ahead and close public comment then. All right, back to the board for discussion. Is there any further discussion on that motion?
Like I said, I think it's just appropriate since we, this information was shared throughout the community. It's all public record, and we're just sharing basically the public record that's presented by the law judge, the administrative judge, providing documentation that was in this order and providing information that was done in the past, which is all now public records. So I just want to make sure we present it to the public the way it was presented to them a year ago with the misinformation by their management company.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Mann?
I don't think I have any problem with the motion, but I'm just curious what would be normally happening right now at our staff level or county attorney's level as far as distributing this good news.
Okay. Mr. DeJoly, you're here. Would you be able to address that? What we normally...
Commissioners, normally on all these cases, we would post the results on our website. I don't remember the last time we had a case where let me rephrase. We've not had a case since we began our new social media communications program. So this would be first time. But normally we would post on the website. We would do a immediate release on the outcome, whether we won or lost.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Does that answer the question, Commissioner Mann? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions on that, Commissioner Pendergrass?
Like the county manager said, we have the new social media and new approach now to getting the word out. Like, for example, today, this is a really important case that's coming up today, for example. There's a lot of residents here. There's no one from the media here. There's no one from the news press. There's no one from the media here. And if we don't get our message out, and we have a very positive message here on this prior case, I think we have to do this. And something the county management has tuck on this year is to make sure we get our message out instead of letting somebody else drive the message. We're actually going to provide the correct information to the public. The public deserves to know what the truth is and what really happened.
Yeah. So, real quick, I had one question or a couple questions, Mr. Jacob, on the Cicada seed mining case. Did you guys find evidence that a corporation engaged with a marketing firm to try and influence the public opinion on the case?
Yes. Through the discovery process, we found that the petitioner used I think it's Priority Marketing was the name of the company, to distribute information and to run a campaign against the county's efforts to amend its comprehensive plan. We even found through document review efforts by certain members of these groups to keep members of the public, from coming to our informational meetings to avoid getting our message. So it is important, as Commissioner Pendergrass indicated, to get our message out there that this is what the county did, this is why the county did it, and this is what the administrative law judge agreed as to the reasons why we did it, and ultimately disagree with the members of the public that were hired and ultimately paid to testify against the county.
All right, thanks, Mr. Jacob. All right, I think, Commissioner Pendergrass, because of the extraordinary effort that a specific company went through to try and influence public opinion, I fully support your motion for us to try and set the record straight. It was almost like a campaign-style tactic that they took against us, like a political campaign tactic they took against us, and so I think to help set the record straight makes a lot of sense, Commissioner, and I'll support your motion. Commissioners, before I call the question, is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, are there any objections? All right, no objections, then that motion carries unanimously. Thanks, and Mr. DeJoly, I'm sure you'll work with your communications staff to get that out. Thank you very much. All right, on to the case for the day. We are going to take up the comprehensive plan for the Bay Harbor Marina Village, MPD. Let's ask Ms. Swindell to introduce the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amanda Swindell at the County Attorney's Office. Before we get into the two items on your agenda this morning, I thought it would be helpful to provide a little bit of a preface as to what brought us here. So you have before you for consideration a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning request for the project known as Bay Harbor Marina. The last time the board saw this project was in October of 2019, when you voted not to adopt a separate comprehensive plan amendment that would have changed the future land use classification from industrial to destination resort mixed use water dependent. And you also denied their companion rezoning request. Your denial was based on the size of the project, including the number of residential units, the building height, and the general bulk of the proposed site. Following the board's denial, the County Attorney's Office received a request for relief under the Florida Land Use and Environmental Dispute Resolution Act, Section 7051 Florida statutes. Section 7051 allows property owners who believe a local government land use decision has unfairly burdened their property to initiate a mandatory mediation procedure in order to resolve the dispute in hopes of avoiding litigation. The process involves the selection of an independent special magistrate, notification of adjacent property owners and participants of record, a public mediation hearing where the parties attempt to reach a mutually acceptable settlement. The mediation hearing in this case was held May 11th here in this chambers, at which a proposed settlement agreement was presented to the special magistrate. The settlement involves a proposed small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use classification from industrial to central urban. This CPA was previously heard by the board back in November of 2016, where it was remanded back to staff, so it is still an active comprehensive plan application. The rezoning request, which will be discussed in more detail when we open up those agenda items, involves a reduction in the number of residential units, a reduction of the building height, increased open space and setbacks, and elimination of the proposed public parking garage, a reduction in the number of requested deviations. The special magistrate has issued an order recommending approval of the proposed settlement as a resolution of this dispute. It's now up to this board to decide if the proposed settlement adequately addresses the board's basis for denial. If the board adopts the CPA and approves the rezoning request, this dispute will be resolved. If the CPA fails, the rezoning request must be denied as inconsistent with a comprehensive plan, and the applicant will be free to pursue litigation against the county in the form of a Burt Harris claim, which has already been filed with the county in this case. So if you have any questions regarding 7051 or the legal procedure, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, I would like to ask Attorney Schropp, attorney for the applicant, to give you an overview of the settlement proposal, which will include the comprehensive plan and the rezoning request before we actually open up each of the individual items for a public hearing, staff presentation, and a vote.
Okay, very good. Commissioners, Commissioner Mann.
You mentioned that a proposal was given to the magistrate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Who offered the proposal? How did that process work? Was that our staff or the applicant?
The proposal was the result of extended negotiations that took place over a few months' time period between staff, the county attorney's office, and the applicant. So we exchanged several proposals and counteroffers going back.
So it was a joint effort, and not one side or the other made the proposal.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. What other questions do we have? I have one question. Just thinking through all the options here as we get into this, if we were to accept the magistrate's recommendation of approval and approve, does the Burt Harris claim go away?
Yes.
It does. Okay, very good. All right. Any further questions for our staff then? All right, very good. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll hear from the applicant.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For your record, I'm Russell Schropp, here today representing Southern Comfort Storage, LLC, which was the applicant in these matters. Here today with Jack Mayer, who was the managing member of Southern Comfort Storage, and also our project planner, Dave Depew, and project engineer, Jim Inc. As Amanda indicated, I'm going to give a brief overview of the settlement or the proposed settlement agreement, and then I'm going to have Dr. Depew come up and give a more in-depth analysis of the comp plan amendment and the zoning as modified by the settlement proposal, so you get an idea. And basically, we'll cover everything in one presentation up front, since this is a companion or simultaneous rezoning and comprehensive plan amendment, essentially. Oh, okay, it does work. As Ms. Swindle indicated, we are here on a request for relief pursuant to the Florida Land Use and Environmental Dispute Resolution Act, or FLUEDRA. After the denial of the plan amendment and rezoning last October, rather than proceed directly with litigation, I filed a request on behalf of Southern Comfort and the Bay Harbor Project under FLUEDRA, asking for appointment of a special magistrate to assist in negotiating a possible resolution of this matter. I also filed on the same day a request for informal mediation under Chapter 163 pertaining to the comprehensive plan amendment. Coming out of the hearing processes and denials of the CPA and rezoning last October, it was our feeling that the primary issues that the board wanted to have addressed as a result of that hearing were basically, number one, the density of the residential component of the project, secondly, the height of the project, and third, general conformance with setbacks and other requirements of the Land Development Code for which deviations had been requested by the applicant. The parties selected a special magistrate, parties being the county and Southern Comfort Storage, selected a special magistrate jointly, and a hearing was set for May 11th. As Ms. Swindle indicated, through a series of pre-hearing negotiations with the County Attorney's Office and the DCD staff, we were able to make significant progress on the issues that I just mentioned, and we reached a proposed settlement agreement that would allow the project to move forward with significantly reduced development parameters and greater conformance with the land development regulations. At the hearing before the special magistrate, the settlement proposal was presented to the special magistrate and to the general public that was in attendance, and the special magistrate did take public testimony from those in attendance. The magistrate subsequently issued a written recommendation that the settlement proposal be accepted by the board. Just briefly, as a summary of the settlement proposal, and then Dr. Depew will go into it more in depth. Basically, the settlement proposes two actions. The first is adoption of a small-scale plan amendment for the 7.47-acre site from industrial and suburban future land use categories to the central urban land use classification. Since this is a small-scale amendment, adoption of this amendment can be accomplished at a single hearing today. It doesn't go through the transmittal and review by state. It can be adopted at a single hearing. The plan amendment, as Ms. Swindle indicated, this plan amendment is the original plan amendment that was requested for this project back in 2015 to Central Urban and was recommended for approval by staff then and now. The second part of the settlement proposal is the adoption of the rezoning request from multiple zoning districts, and you see them up there under point 2, to the mixed-use planned development zoning category, or MPD. The approval would be subject to the following changes that we've negotiated in response to the board's concerns addressed last October. First, it would result in a reduction in the number of units from 113 to 75, which essentially reduces the density of the project from 15 dwelling units an acre down to 10. The proposal includes a marina of 286 dry slips and 29 wet slips and a boat launch facility, but all of that has already been approved by the county through prior zoning actions and prior development orders. The proposal also includes 30,000 square feet of commercial, office, and retail, including storage uses, which have already been approved for the project in the amount of 34,000 square feet, so a slight reduction in the commercial warehouse-related space. And finally, the rezoning would add 20,000 square feet of civic area to the project that would be publicly accessible for viewing the water, reaching the water, and recreational facilities. So in essence, the only new uses that would be approved by this rezoning request would be the addition of the 75 dwelling units, a residential component, and the 20,000 square feet of civic space. Additionally, the height of the mixed-use building would be reduced to 100 feet. As you'll recall, those of you who have been through this process since the beginning, the original proposal was for 175 feet. That was reduced to 145 feet when we came to you last October. We're now reducing it down to 100 feet. The number of deviations requested have also been reduced, and Dave will go into that in a little more detail. An updated master concept plan reflecting greater conformance with the Land Development Code as part of the proposal, as well as an exhibit that shows how the structures would be tiered as setbacks increase from the perimeters of the project in order to reduce the appearance of the bulk. That's basically a summary of the process and the proposed resolution that's before you today. Unless there's questions of me, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Depew to go through the project in a little more detail.
What questions do we have for Mr. Schropp?
Anything? No?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schropp. Good morning, Commissioners. David Depew representing the applicant. I've appeared before you before. I'm not going to get into my background. I think you all know me. I'm here as the project planner. I'm a principal with Morris Depew Associates. And I want to kind of not rehash any of this stuff, but at least set the context for what we're discussing here. The San Carlos Island is undergoing a redevelopment. It's at its inception in redevelopment. It's just starting the redevelopment process, but it's nevertheless showing the stresses and strains of any redevelopment in an existing area of such intense development that's already there. The project that is probably the most indicative of that redevelopment is the Ebb Tide project, which is less than 1,000 feet away from the subject property. The subject property in this you see is outlined in red. And the subject property, which is the site of the former Compass Rose Marina, is currently surrounded primarily by mobile home uses. Those uses range from a high of over 25 units to the acre to the west of the subject property, down to about 5.5 units per acre just to the east of the subject property. But there are a variety of densities of mobile homes, and you can see it clearly in the aerial photograph, that exist in San Carlos Island. And many of these mobile homes are reaching the end of their functional lifespan. So you can anticipate that redevelopment of San Carlos Island is going to take place. And in many respects, with the exception of a couple expansions of marina uses, and you can see down here Diversified Yacht and Gulf Star Marina, there has been no industrial development in decades over the last 20 years. The record reflects that. We put that into the record as part of our record during the hearing. And it's due primarily to the fact that there's no significant demand for industrial uses pursuant to the industrial land use designation that exists in many of these areas. In fact, many of the existing approvals down there, at least a few of the existing approvals, still sit undeveloped on the south side of Main Street. The Commission has already unanimously approved the first steps of the redevelopment associated with San Carlos Island. On Ebb Tide, which is, as I think you all know, a project just slightly to the east of the subject property, it was approved to retain the 271 dwelling units, but change the configuration into a high-rise structure of a maximum of 230 feet tall. 230 feet. That's what the Commission unanimously approved. And while they didn't increase the number of dwelling units, as it is so often said to you, what did happen is they added 450 hotel units as part of the redevelopment project, along with a 75,000 square foot convention center and 95,000 square feet of retail and office uses, along with the 850 slip marina that was approved as part of the redevelopment plan. And as I said, it's small, you can't really see it, but these visuals are available. And yes, there is some open space associated with this, but there are mangrove areas here and these 3 islands out here which were part of Ebb Tide. So yes, there's some open space, but it's mangrove open space that wasn't going to be developed anyway. And you can see from this site plan here, there's not much open space interior to this development. I mean, they've got some retention ponds, but it's a fairly dense urban-style development with a maximum height, as I said, of 230 feet. So you've got that already set as a template for redevelopment on San Carlos Island. Currently, the Bay Harbor property possesses permits for reconstruction of the Compass Rose Marina, as well as the existing mini storage, which is the goldish kind of colored building, and it exists on site. There are a total of 286 dry slips in 2 boat barns, each topping out at 55 feet above the FEMA elevation, which would be 65 feet from sea level. So you're already at 65 feet above sea level on this particular property. Additionally, there are 29 slips across, wet slips approved along the canal, and approximately 34,000 square feet of retail and many warehouse uses that were permitted as part of the Compass Rose development order. The marina use so far has not proved financially feasible. That is partially reflected in the record, but reflected as well on the ground. The Semmer property across the street has been approved for a similar style of boat barn in terms of the height, although not quite as large. It hasn't gotten out of the ground either. In 2016, this was the request that was before the board. The evolution of the site plan over the past half-decade has been an effort to create a mixed-use development plan that would provide not only for the redevelopment efforts moving forward, but also be compatible with the existing uses as redevelopment progresses across the island. The initial application included 113 residential units in a 14-story, 175-foot-tall building with a parking garage that included 200 public parking spaces, as well as rooftop open space and recreational areas. By 2018, the reduced building height, commercial liner buildings, tiered building levels, and developed civic space were shown on the revised concept plans. The lowering of the building heights from the initial proposed 175 feet to 145 feet was accomplished. The site plan changed to provide civic space and streetscape improvements, liner buildings along Main Street, buffering townhomes along the canal area to shield the uses from the east side to the activities taking place in the boat storage buildings, and increased ground level open space and civic space on the southeast corner of the subject property. Today, by 2020, that structure has been changed again. It has once again reduced the maximum building height from 145 feet now down to 100 feet. Plan has reduced the number of units from 113 dwelling units to 75 dwelling units, increased the setbacks along Main Street to 57 feet, and not less than 50 feet on the west sides and north side boundaries. It has retained the tiered wedding cake structure of the residential and mixed-use building and commercial portions of the project. It has kept the tiered liner building along Main Street, but moved it further to the west. It's eliminated 200 of the public parking spaces. It's decreased the number of deviations. It's increased the amount of open space, and it's kept the civic space at the location on the southeast corner of the subject property at Main Street and Oak Street. The current settlement proposal reflects the original application for a central urban designation, as Mr. Schropp and Ms. Swindell told you. As an infill project with no prospects for financially feasible development under the current future land use designations, its reduced levels of impact currently is consistent with the Lee Plan vision statement and the San Carlos Island Goal 32. It's consistent with objectives 2.2 and 2.6, as well as policy 2.2.1. The site plan affects a mixed-use development, streetscape improvements, buffers, setbacks, as well as developed civic space to support policy 1.1.3 of the Lee Plan. The marina use is preserved, along with access to the water for the public, implementing objective 32.1 and policy 32.1.1. The increased setbacks, proposed building design, and internal landscaping and buffering meet the criteria of policy 5.1.5 and 135.9.5. The reduced density, increased setbacks, and design modifications address concerns that were raised regarding policies 611, 613, 614, and 616. And the elimination of the public parking element of the proposal addresses concerns regarding 32.2.2. The proposed development plan provides, as I indicated, for a 57-foot setback of the structure itself off of Main Street, which you can see is right here. That dotted line is the setback line off of Main Street. The 50-foot setback off of the west and north lines are reflected by this dotted line here. And what it does is it allows for a full circular internal traffic circulation system around the building, which allows elimination of a couple of deviations. The buffering of the townhomes are maintained along the canal to buffer the marina operations from the residences to the east, as well as provide some architectural relief from that direction. The civic space is maintained on the southeast corner of the project, and green space has been increased from 2.23 acres to 2.61 acres by 17% overall. The number of dwelling units has been reduced from 113 to 75, and the proposed 200 public parking spaces have been removed. The building height has been reduced for a second time down to 100 feet, with the tiered wedding cake configuration of the building maintained. Commercial liner building has been moved to the west, and the number of deviations, as indicated, have been reduced. All of these modifications, we believe, serve to implement the performance criteria found in the Land Development Code sections 145, 411, and 413.
Real quick before you move on, is that civic space open to the public?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the other questions we got was whether it was intended to be lighted. It is not intended to be lighted. It is intended to be operational just as long as the marina is operational, and that's simply because the idea is not to provide something that's going to be attractant at nighttime, so there's gatherings that are going to somehow disturb the neighborhood, but rather to make sure that there is something that the neighborhood itself can take advantage of during the daytime hours and the morning and the twilight hours, but not into the evening itself. This is the third time that the request has been before the board, and it comes to you once again with a recommendation of approval from the staff as well as the applicant's experts, and it's accompanied by a recommendation of approval by the special magistrate in this situation, who took public input, who reviewed the various records associated with his case, and made his recommendation objectively and independently from anything that was provided by either the staff, the county attorney's office, or the applicant. It's my professional opinion at this point that the proposed design minimizes the effect on surrounding properties and the public interest, specifically accommodating open space and buffering, recreational facilities, multimodal transportation and future public transit, reduced parking, reduced building height and massing, on-site utilities, and stormwater management. The reduced density of the residential, the neighborhood commercial, and waterfront-based commercial uses with civic space are integrated in a manner that blends into the human environment and is compatible with the surrounding uses. The proposed conditions facilitate a tiered building facade and a unified architectural theme, as well as additional screening through the increased setbacks and landscaping. The proposed small-scale amendment is consistent with all the applicable standards of the Community Planning Act and all applicable goals, objectives, and policies of the Lee Plan. The requested MPD includes an appropriate mix of uses and the deviations that enhance the planned development with related conditions to protect the public interest. In point of fact, this has been reduced now down to the bone. There isn't another reduction that the applicant can offer on this that makes any sort of reasonable economic sense and provides a reasonably beneficial economic interest for the applicant. The record reflects that. We provided testimony for that through the process itself. And with this final slide, I would simply tell you this is the evolution of this development. And you can clearly see in this evolution what's happened. It went from basically non-functional development that the existing approval suggests up here with a small mini warehouse and some fairly large and bulky dry storage buildings into something that provides civic space, provides additional economic development incentive, provides some additional housing space that is upscale housing for this area. And as you can see by the little graph there on the left-hand side of the screen, we're less than 50% of the height that's already been approved for the Ebb Tide project just down the street. Less than 50%. This is, we think, a reasonable alternative. It provides increased setbacks and green space. It preserves the civic space. It provides a less intense structure. It provides all of the benefits that this redevelopment scheme is going to provide, and yet we still understand there are inevitably going to be concerns. There are fears of the future. It's normal. You're going to get this in any redevelopment area of the county. You've seen it in the past. You'll see it in the future. But this is something that will be positive from an economic standpoint. It will be positive for decades to come as San Carlos Island begins and finishes its redevelopment process. With that, we're done, and I'm ready to answer any questions that the board might have. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Any questions, commissioners, at all?
Dave, I have a question.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
Dave, I think I was along Oak, the little tan buildings beyond the tennis courts and pickleball courts. What are those there?
Those are mobile homes.
Those are, okay. Just want to make sure that's what they were supposed to be in the picture.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? No? All right. Thank you, Mr. Depew. All right, so that concludes the applicant's presentation then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So at this time, it would be appropriate to move into public comment and then board discussion?
Mr. Chair, the information that staff would typically introduce for the comprehensive plan amendment's been covered. Ms. Radulski is available to answer questions from the board.
Okay. Do we have any questions for our staff before we move into the public comment portion? Commissioner Mann?
I just need to be brought back up to speed on the nature of the litigation under which we are proceeding, meaning the reference I heard to the Bert Harris claim. Is Mr. Jacob the one I think I want to ask for the history on that? When was that filed? What is the status of it? Was it withdrawn altogether, or is it still hanging there? I feel like I have a loaded gun pointed at me while I'm trying to make an objective assessment of what's been proposed here this morning. So what is the status of the Bert Harris? And a second follow-up to that is, if they own property that has already been approved for development, and my understanding of Bert Harris is you have to be denied the use of your property and it's already been approved, how that's a follow-up to the whole Bert Harris status. Can you package those two together and help me?
Yes, sir. The exact date, I don't remember the exact date the claim was filed. I believe it was 6 months ago. From the standpoint of the status of that case, is still an active litigation. As far as the merits of that case, we feel we have very good position with regards to defending against it. We won't get into the exact nature of why we believe that. From the standpoint of the...
Yeah, I'm not asking you to try the case and point out.
From a Bert Harris standpoint in general, one of the arguments that would be raised from an applicant would be that they have no beneficial use left of their property and that somehow the board's denial effectively did that to them. However, we would point out the obvious approvals that you have in place that exist today as potential for development of the site. From the standpoint of the status as far as moving forward this case, the 7051 process that we will get into if the board adopts the small-scale amendment, that is just a mediation phase, if you will. You can agree to the mediator's recommendation or you can disagree with it. Everything that happens in the 7051 proceeding is outside of the litigation. It cannot be used by either party in the litigation. So from that standpoint, you are free to speak your mind on that matter and not worry about the proverbial gun to your head.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
I have a question, maybe it's for the planner or maybe for David. I'm not sure if Mickey can answer it. So, David, I would come to the podium, I guess. So, thank you. So my question is, it's kind of an open question here, but so is the lifelong resident of Lee County. We all seen a lot of changes in Lee County, especially the beach. So everybody here today lives at the beach. Congratulations for living in paradise. It's beautiful down there. So I was just curious. I know we've gone through a 4 or 5 year process, went from 230 feet or 175 feet down to 100 feet now. And one thing I always struggle with, if we reduce urban sprawl, we said we go up. You have to go up to keep the units up instead of creating more of a bigger footprint. So just curious through the process, what the concerns with the residents, was it height, was for visual, or was it traffic? Because I'm always trying to reduce sprawl. If we go up with units, we'll reduce urban sprawl. If we did that 40 years ago, we wouldn't have people living east of I-75. So just wondering what the concerns was. Was it traffic, why they want to reduce the height, or was it for visual?
I would tell you, Commissioner, that there were both of those were concerns.
Okay.
The massing of the building, the height of the building was a concern that was mentioned, and traffic was mentioned as a concern as well.
Because sometimes what happens in other places, this part of other places, when you reduce the height, you create a bigger footprint at the bottom, and then you lose green space and you create more surface space. So it doesn't really help with water quality, and also with other issues. The traffic's still going to be there, and we can't deny because of traffic. So.
On this final plan, the reduction in the number of units, as well as the reduction in the number of parking spaces, and the increase in the setbacks, it allowed us to increase the setbacks. It allowed us to decrease the overall intensity of the site, and it allowed us to lower the site, so it decreased the building mass. I mean, in comparison to the original request, the overall traffic was reduced by over 1,100 daily trips, and by almost 150 a.m. peak hour trips, and about 145 p.m. peak hour trips. So there was a significant reduction in the overall intensity as a result of that, from the original proposal to the current proposal.
1,100 trips per day reduced?
1,100 trips per day were taken off of the table as a result of the reduction in the loss of the parking spaces and the loss of the 38 units.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. What other questions do we have before we move on to the public comment then? Okay, very good. At this time, we'll go ahead and get started with public comment. We've got enough public comment cards to do 2 hours and 15 minutes, it looks like, if everybody took their full time. So let me go over real quickly the rules of public comment. We've got everything set up for you at the podium up here. You don't have to touch anything. You can just come right up and speak. The microphone will pick you up. You don't have to bend down or anything to it. It'll pick you up. On the top corner of the podium, you'll see there's a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. It works just like a traffic light. It'll tell you when you're getting close to the end of your time limit. In order to be fair to everybody and make sure that everybody gets the same amount of time to speak, we're going to do, the administrative code says you have a 5-minute time limit on comprehensive plans. So we're going to do a 5-minute time limit today. And when you reach the end of your time, I'm going to go ahead and call the next speaker. It's not to cut you off, but it is to make sure that we give everybody the same fair amount of time. One thing that I would ask today is let's just treat each other the way we would want to be treated. Okay, so no personal attacks, no booing, no hissing or laughing or clapping, all that. Let's just try to follow, appropriate, respectful rules of decorum as we do this today. And finally, because it seems like we're in for a longer public comment session today, I'm going to go ahead and take a break around 11 o'clock. I like to do a break about every 90 minutes just to give people a chance to do what they need to do and then still not miss any of the hearing. So with that, let's go ahead and begin. I'll call the first speaker that I have a card for, and then I'll call also who the next speaker would be. If the next person who's speaking next would start to maybe make their way towards the back of the room near the door and be ready to go, that would be fantastic. So our first speaker will be Tyler Gribb, and our second speaker will be Gail Mason.
Michael, he's safe.
Hello, members of the board. I have, I think, a unique perspective. My family owns the Naughty Parrot Dock Bar, which is on the north end of San Carlos Island. We've been there for about 3 years, and one thing that Ms. Swindell noted that we've used at our restaurant is the fact that we're a destination. We're so close to the beach, but everybody gets blinders on when they hit San Carlos Island. They want to head right across. Something like this, I think, will be beneficial to our livelihood. The fact that we would have a building like this that's not only residential but offers a commercial viewpoint as well as boat use It's a large part of our business as well, the boat traffic that comes back to us. The footprint on San Carlos Island, as the council member pointed out, the mobile homes to the right of it, they are a bit of an eyesore. I think that's going to be something that drives us forward to a better development for the whole island. Obviously, Uptide's doing the same thing on the south end, but this is something that you can see right as you're heading across San Carlos, heading down San Carlos to the beach. It shows that this is going to be an up-and-coming island as well, something that people aren't just going to drive right through to head towards the beach. They're going to stop or head towards, see something on the left-hand side right as they're crossing, something that makes them want to stop there. As far as us, we've been surviving for the past 3 years, but it's very hard for commercial properties to be there. Our property alone has had 5-6 owners in the past 10 years. Like I said, we've made this survive for 3 years, and we just want to see it prosper all year long, not just the winter months when everybody has the business coming in. We want to see it happen in the summer as well. So a property like this, I feel like, will be beneficial to not only us, but the island itself to help drive progress in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Gail Mason, followed by Paula Kiker. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Gail Mason. I live 18120 San Carlos Boulevard. I've sent you all an email earlier. I'm just going to try to touch base on the notes that I've made since I've been sitting here this morning. Commissioner Mann, where is it? You questioned, what did you questioned something earlier. Hang on. You said it was a joint proposal by the attorney, the staff, and the applicant. Unfortunately, both staff and the applicant have favored this project from its original rendition. Those that were in opposition were never party to what they discussed in their latest proposal. Also, when we last were before the commissioners, I believe it was Commissioner Mann that said that previously things had been to a zoning hearing or hearing examiner, and I think this project also needs to go to a hearing examiner so it can be publicly vetted. They may think that the new thing is marvelous. They may not. I think we are entitled to hear that. Addressing economic feasibility, to the best of my knowledge, that's never been a legitimate consideration. It's the same property back from whenever they bought it. They knew what was allowed. They've already had multiple concessions. When I look at some of the things that they're proposing, first of all, if you look at San Carlos Boulevard, the narrow abutting properties are urban community, and that's on a 4.5, 5-lane road. Now we're going to put something called Central Urban, which is more intense on a little feeder road called Main Street that's iffy at best. That just sounds ludicrous to me that you're putting more intense development further away from what's already existing on the main roads. Ebb tide keeps being used as an example. I think it's not the precedent that people want it to be. Yes, it was approved. It's still not built. It may never be built. And it's my understanding when they have their high-rise buildings, they're off in the corner of the property so that they're not abutting existing mobile homes and single-family homes. I still think it is too intense, too dense, too tall, too much for the site, and out of character for the neighborhood. I think adding additional density for residential on a barrier island, coastal hazard, and all that is a really, really, really bad idea. I could personally maybe go along with some townhouses along the canal. as an additional buffer. I don't see any reason why they should be 49 feet when the San Carlos Island Community Plan, which everybody seems to put in abeyance, has a height restriction of 34 or 35 feet. Go ahead. Townhome buffers along the canal, fine. 35 feet, 25-foot setback like the rest of the county, and in compliance with the San Carlos Island Community Plan that's in existence at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paula Kiker, followed by Billy Simmer. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you? I'm here today to speak in favor of the Bay Harbor Village Marina. As the gateway to Fort Myers Beach, San Carlos Boulevard has been an eyesore for a number of years. Vacant and distressed buildings line the street. Most of these businesses are not being supported by the current residents of San Carlos Island and cannot survive without the influx of new residents. This project will breathe new life into the area. It is time that we improve the area, create an economic engine that is ever so needed. As the owner of a real estate company on Fort Myers Beach and a resident in Lee County for over 26 years, it is my belief that this project will improve the property values of the homes on San Carlos Island. We all suffer from those woes of traffic and congestion, but who are we to deny others to have their own piece of paradise? Change is inevitable. The scope of this project has changed significantly since this process has started. I believe that upon completion of this project and its new residents, San Carlos Island and its working waterfront will blend together and thrive for many generations to come. I urge you to consider accepting this project. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Kiker. Billy Simmer, followed by Bradley Glover. Bradley Glover.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I live on O Street. I just built a house there, and I had to follow all the guidelines. I had to be 25 feet away from the seawall. They have a 20-foot easement plus my 25-foot setback on that. I had to follow the height restrictions and putting houses right on the seawall and just getting away with just giving them what they want there. I mean, no rules, nothing to follow there. It's just ridiculous. And I'm also partners in a lot of the properties that all surround it, and changing to something like this will just change the livelihood of everything that's there. I mean, I can understand some development, but changing to this, you're going to put so much more traffic on the road. We already have a problem with the water supply. If you talk to the county, the water lines and everything that are there, I mean, they're not set up for adding this amount of new residents and new development there. I'm in opposition of it. It's just absurd to me to see what they want to change it to. So, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Bradley Glover, followed by Nicholas White.
My name's Brad Glover. I'm a resident of San Carlos Island. I've been against this project since 2015. The comprehensive planning changes, I think, are going to set a precedence for San Carlos Island, and it could change the entire island in the years to come. The property in question is a very small acreage, 7 acres, and it seems like the intensity and the density of it does not fit in with the surrounding areas. It will not, the roads won't take it. We're in a hazardous water area. On top of that, we have our shrimp industry, and the whole south side is basically related to the marine life and the fishing industry. And I'd hate to see that change. I would love to see that piece of property be more related to the marine aspect. The boat barn, which has already been approved, would be wonderful to go in. Keep the storage facility, make it more to the industrial and related businesses that exist on that island. I'd also like to say that, make comment about the meeting on May 11th in front of the magistrate. We could not get in the building in the morning. We had to get a maintenance person to let us in, unlock the doors. There were problems with, there was no recording of that meeting. There were 18 people who signed letters wanting to come up and speak. However, we're in a pandemic. Of that 18, 8 of us showed up. The governor of the state's telling people, if you're over 60, stay home, which most all these people were. So they had no access to come and speak. I think this is very complex problems, and to judge it and completely approve it today would be a fault thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nicholas White, followed by Joanne Simmer.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. My name is Nicholas White. I live on Emily Lane on San Carlos Island. All 4 of my children have moved to Florida. I got 9 grandchildren. We're all Floridians. We're invested in Florida. And we did not come here from the north with a desire to change Florida to make it like where we came from. We came here because we like the way it is, and we work hard to make it stay the good place that it is. And I feel the same about San Carlos Island. I've sat through a lot of these hearings. You probably remember seeing me here. We've been doing this for 5 years now. The people that get up and speak in favor of this talk about how it's going to help their business or it's going to create jobs. Well, the Land Development Code doesn't say anything that makes my business better is legal. And I just feel at this late date now that we have certainly made it look to the residents of San Carlos Island that we don't care a feather or a fig about the Land Development Code. We are willing to throw it in the garbage in a second if it's going to put something like this in place. I'm just going to give you a couple examples because I don't have much time. But on the parking, they say they took out the public parking. During the last hearing examiner, it was from 6, they said they had 640 parking places. You take 200 of them out, now you got 440. Well, what about the ones you don't need because you took 38 condos out? That's almost 50 parking places. And there were no calculations done at all to calculate the minimum number of parking places for the businesses that it's being asked to be put here. During the flu DRA hearing, I asked if the calculations were done. Staff said no, they weren't done, and I was told if I wanted them done, I should do them myself. That is preposterous. We should know how many parking places should there be for the businesses that are being proposed. We do not know because we don't want to know. The developer has constantly said over and over again that they're being discriminated against because their development is analogous to the one that was approved down the street. 2 hearing examiners have gone into great detail to explain why this is not analogous to that. And yet they keep bringing that up and people keep buying it. It's not analogous. They weren't discriminated against. They have to make this fly on its own merits. And if I may say, even if it was analogous, if we screwed up once and approved something that didn't belong on San Carlos Island, does that mean we have to screw up and allow every ridiculous development to be put in place? The central urban land use, we've been through that ad nauseum. It is inappropriate for San Carlos Island. With COVID-19, we've just gone and seen how dangerous it is to have too many people in too small a place. This is precedent setting. Do we really think there's only going to be one of these? No, there isn't. They're going to be all over San Carlos Island and other things. And individual elements are plucked out and used as precedent, like those townhouses. If an individual that lived on San Carlos Island wanted to put up one 49-foot-high townhouse next to the canal, they'd be laughed out of the zoning office. And yet when a developer wants to put 15 of them there, it's a wonderful thing, and we should all dance in the streets with joy. So, gentlemen, I ask you one more time to refuse this. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your comment. We've got Joanne Simmer, followed by Henry Blakely.
It says, do not touch the podium. Can I put my papers down?
Sure, you can put your papers down.
My name is Joanne Simmer. I live at least just 100 feet from where the corner of that property is across Main Street. I've been in the area over 50 years. I know the property very well. I worked for Steve Gibney. He owned it before, and then he died. And then Jack Mayer and his group bought it as Compass Rose. I worked on that project. I'm a contractor and a consultant, and we did a wonderful job in 2008. They got all kinds of entitlements for the project, and then they went bankrupt. They went back to the bank, and then they bought it back under a different contract, under a different name for $6 million. Well, they bankrupt for $6 million. They bought it back for $2 million, and they didn't pay any of the contractors. But I want you to also know that we've asked staff to meet with us, and staff has refused to meet with us over all these years. Mr. Sandelli, I've asked you 3 times to meet with us, and you haven't met with us yet about this project. I want to talk about traffic for one thing. Mr. Depew was talking about traffic. Here's their traffic calculations out of their book that they produced, page 57 of 262. Minus the 200 public parking spaces, they're going to generate 3,253 two-way traffic trips on San Carlos Boulevard and Main Street. Would you like to see this, anybody? Nope, nobody cares. Okay. Also, we're in a flood hazard zone. This property in the 1970s, the county commissioners passed a resolution that said that we were not going to allow any more multifamily density on San Carlos Island because it was built out. The Ed-Tide project was held to that. They were not allowed one additional density. It's 1 for 1. Also, and the proposal that the client and Mr. Schropp showed us during the hearing, which was just a farce with a magistrate, it says 30,000 square feet of commercial retail office already approved for 34,000 square feet of prior development order, special exception, and variance actions. That is totally wrong. I've asked to see that. All I was told that was the storage units. If you go to the storage units, you cannot have retail in the storage units. You can't put a business in there. But, I mean, I worked on the 2008 with Jim Inc. Where's Jim?
Ma'am, could you address the board? Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm frustrated. And also, when Jack Mayer bought it the first time in 2008, it was a functioning marina with small warehouses with businesses in it, plus just storage units. During the Hurricane Charlie, it didn't have much damage at all. And Hurricane Wilma, one pole barn went down because it wasn't tied to the forklift. I was there. I walked to the property to make sure that nobody had been injured. Also, hurricane evacuation. San Carlos Island is considered a barrier island, and 3,000 car trips a day, it's going to affect the evacuation of not only San Carlos Island, but Estero Island. Also, that building, do you realize that building is 100 feet high and it's the size of a football field? The size of a football field. And also, when Mr. Depew or somebody spoke about Oak Street, it is not all mobile homes. I live on the south side of Oak Street. I counted them. We have 17 traditional homes on Oak Street mixed with mobile homes. They forget that. Also, that whole area is industrialized. We are the only federal channel between Key West and Tampa. It's the only thing that has a depth of 14 feet. It's maintained by the Army Corps of Engineers. And we have Olson Marine Boat Yard, Main Street Marina, Summer Electric, Anchorage, Summer Anchorage, Gulf Marineways Boat Yard, Kelly Brothers Marine Contracting, Trico Seafood, San Carlos Island Maritime Park Property, Sanibel Seafood, Key West Express, Ballard Oil, Players Landing. All of these areas need the industrial land use for related businesses, and that's what used to work on it before the applicant bought the property and tore the buildings down.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much for your comments today. At this time, I've got to call Henry Blakely, and Henry Blakely will be followed by William J. Simmer.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Henry Roland Blakely. Excuse me. And I, along with my wife, Sandra, live at 849 Oak Street, San Carlos Island. I've mostly been living around that neighborhood since the spring of 1949. A question I've got for you. My neighbor handed me this yesterday, my next door neighbor, and wanted me to read it to you. Is that permissible?
You can do whatever you'd like with your 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
As long as you don't personally attack anybody.
This is from Denise and Randy Pringle, 847 Oak Street. And Denise and Randy signed this in case they needed to. Commissioners, my husband and myself, who own our house at 847 Oak Street, strongly oppose the Bay Harbor Marina Village Settlement Agreement. We share the same canal. For the proposal, there is no required 20-foot setback where she's at. This massive structure will cast a prison-like urban shadow on our block home, addressing the population overload. We do not have the roadways for hurricane escape. This greed is putting our lives in danger. Denise and Randy Pringle. I, too, am opposed to changing the land use rules to central urban for our little tiny island. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's call up William Simmer, followed by Charlie Whitehead.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, who I am, I'm Bill Simmer. Okay, and I'm a 50-year resident of San Carlos Island. I live directly across the street from the project. First of all, too big, too ugly, doesn't belong on our island, out of character. Everything that everybody has said about it is true. Properties, I own a lot of properties on the island. Around that property right there, I own the two large properties behind it. One's commercial marine, the other one is agriculture along the canal all the way to the back bay. To the east of the property, I own 7 different mobile homes and houses. Just built a brand new house with my son, meeting all the regulations of Lee County with the setbacks, 25 foot from the canal. And you got a 20-foot setback and a 25-foot setback from the road. On the other side, I own all the commercial units, which are storage units on Buttonwood. There's 9 of them over there. Coming across the street to the south, I own the two big commercial people. I own Semmer Electric. I own Semmer Marina, and behind that, I own Main Street apartments and houses, Main Street Marina, and behind that one, further around the corner, I have a restaurant, Bonita Bill's. I have the Otsego Bay Foundation. I own the property that I have the state DEP at. So I represent a lot more, and I got a few more on the other side of the island as well. And this property just does not belong there. Maybe somewhere else in Lee County, that's good, but not on our little island. Our island is designed. If you look at it, the pictures they show you, that one is so out of proportion, it's unbelievable. Oak Street, that's just a little 60-foot wide street. That's all the bigger it is, not a 150-footer as they put. The canal is only 75-foot wide. It has 15-foot easement on both sides for boathouses and docks, and they don't show any of those. And this side of the canal is full of boathouses, boat lifts, and docks. There's the road Otsego. That's the one they don't show you. They show you a little walkway coming across this side. Well, it's just as wide as Oak Street. That was donated to the county in 1946. That has a sewer main that goes all the way through it with manhole covers there and on my property and right up to the fence and on through. So you want to put the townhouses in there on the seawall and on the road. Doesn't meet any regulation whatsoever that Lee County has out there. That they would have to build them 10 foot wide if you built one. So there's no room to do what they want to do. They just overbuild over everything and blow this thing out, like just pull it all out. It's totally out of proportion to show you what they have. Just fabricated doing what they're doing. With all those properties, my son Billy, who's just up here, helps me manage all the stuff that I have going on there. One of the main things with San Carlos Boulevard is it needs to be redeveloped long before we start developing anything further on the island. That has not been touched whatsoever. Main Street is only a 2-lane road. It has no turning lanes, and nor will it ever have any turning lanes off of it. To throw that many more cars on there, that's just not possible to do what you want to do. Hurricanes, nobody discussed anything about hurricane evacuations that you have to get that many more people lost with all the ones that we have, all the different things that we had going down there. The history of all the stuff that we've been going on here, our very first meeting that we had on the island was just across the street, and I think there was 14 county staff members, 76 San Carlos Island residents, 6 from out of state and on Estero Island. Out of that, 93% of the people rejected it. So the county never brought that up, so we had the hearing examiners. So Bellflower was our first one that many more people were at that meeting than what are here because they've gone home already. And that had 54 rejections. So that was shut down. So they waited until Bellflower retired, and they turned around and then got Mrs. Collins, did a beautiful job. She did her report, 57 rejections. And out of those 57, the staff tried to change all of that. Wasn't going to happen. That was rejected. Then it came before you guys.
At this time, I've got to call Mr.
When you guys got up here, you said, staff, you're not going to overrun, nor the county attorneys overrun.
I've got to call Mr. Whitehead. Mr. Whitehead,
okay.
It's your turn.
So what do you want me to do? Sit down?
Yes, please.
I got a lot more to talk about.
I know you do. Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for listening. What do we got?
All right, Mr. Whitehead.
Gentlemen, here we are again. My name is Charlie Whitehead. I'm a resident in one of those eyesores that you get to after you drive by this proposed site. It has been a long, strange trip to get here. As you meet to once again consider the future of the island that so many of us here call home, I'm going to ask you to remember some things. As recently as October, you gentlemen rejected this proposal for the second time. At that time, Russell had offered an 11th hour compromise, closely mirrors what you're looking at today. Mr. Chairman, you said it would be inappropriate to consider that compromise because it had not gone through the hearing examiner process and therefore had not been properly vetted either by her or by the public. Well, it still hasn't. What you have before you today is a compromise that was created by your planners and your attorneys and the developers' representatives. The agreement was not available to the public until after the special master you hired had already rubber-stamped it. He did this at a hearing held in the middle of a pandemic in a courthouse that I found locked when I arrived, where there was no sound system, no recording made, and no minutes kept. Regardless, I was gratified to hear Ms. Swindell say to lead off the hearing that your existing decision is, what do they call that, based on competent, substantial evidence and would stand up in court. I believe that's the same standard you guys were talking about earlier with the cicada seed case. What we do know about this is what, again, Mr. Chairman, you said about it in October. It is too much, too big, on too small a space. We know that it would create an island of intense central urban land use on San Carlos Island, a precedent certain to be grabbed a hold of by other developers on the island and along the corridor who are watching this case carefully. We know that it would scuttle the rewrite of the San Carlos Island Community Plan, something that you yourselves have ordered and on which no action has taken place since February of 2019. Create this island of central urban, and it will not be a case of planning guiding development, which I have heard you say is the right way to do things. It will be a case of development driving the plan. I could stand here and cite all the LEAP plan policies this compromise would violate, but your hearing examiners know much more about such things than I do and have both given you a litany of such violations in their reports. You know that stacking additional residential units in a hurricane zone at the end of the most crowded road in the county is a bad idea. You know that putting a 100-foot building in the midst of hundreds of 15 to 20-foot homes is not compatible. You know that adding over 3,500 car trips to the evacuation route and to tiny, crowded two-lane Main Street is not the right thing to do. So I'm going to ask you only to do what you know is the right thing to do. There's been some talk about ebb tide. Those of you that were on the board when that was approved, remember that's the first time I took off my reporter hat and put on a different hat. I opposed ebb tide, and I also see it as not a precedent for the future, but a mistake of the past not to be repeated. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much. Catherine Young, followed by Howard Wheeler.
Morning, all. You know, my grandfather used to say you always want to buy a car that was built on a Wednesday. So here we are. My name's Catherine Young. I'm a realtor with Fort Myers Beach Realty. I've lived in Lee County most of my life. 35 years between Iona and Fort Myers Beach. And in that time, I've seen a lot of change. The people here today on both sides of this issue have been my friends, neighbors, and customers. I've patronized their businesses as well. I was living on San Carlos Island in 2005 when Hurricane Wilma destroyed Compass Rose Marina, part of the property in question today. It's been in a state of neglect since. Now, I see San Carlos Island is to Fort Myers Beach like the lower keys are to Key West, especially concerning property values. To avoid the danger of falling into urban blight, this area needs an upgrade. To become a viable part of the community and the county again, I feel this project is the boost to do just that. The investors and developers are folks who live and work here. They've raised their families here. They're not outsiders who have come down and said, hey, I love this place, let's change it. Nick and Jack have met with the community many times to seek their input, and they've made compromises to their plans. I'd like to see this project move forward. It's been subject to too many delays. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Howard Wheeler, followed by Larry Cripps.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Howard Wheeler. I had the privilege to sit in yesterday to watch how your staff and yourselves are giving out the, assigning the money of the $130-something million awarded to Lee County. And when I went back and talked to my team about that, they said, hey, why don't we let everybody know what kind of labor dollars would be on this site should this be approved. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Direct labor dollars working on the site would be between $25 and $30 million over the course of this project. That's a lot of families that we're feeding and helping. Indirect labor dollars by our suppliers, lumber yards, those kind of things, an additional $10 to $12 million. And architect and engineering, an additional $4 or $5 million in labor. So I wanted to share with you those numbers as you evaluate this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. All right, Larry Cripps, followed by Denise Knudsen.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Larry Cripps. I live on Emily Lane. I'm also the president of the Emily Lane Association. Emily Lane consists of 84 mobile manufactured homes. Right now, there's 2 new homes being put in on our street. One of them they just delivered a week ago. The other one was put in earlier this spring. I am I'm against this project. One of the reasons is the traffic, and I'm worried about most of our residents are older people. And in the month of March, we had 4 ambulance runs in a 2-week period. That's why I'm worried about the traffic, that people that are going to need the rescue and fire to get down our street from where the development is at. Right now, most of our residents are gone, but they have said they're worried about the traffic and the possible of medical not being able to get to them in a reasonable length of time. So I'm against the project, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your time. Denise Knudsen, followed by Margie Titus. Morning.
Hi there, Denise Knudsen, residential realtor.
Silent, sorry.
Residential realtor, been in Lee County most of my life, and I'm here today in support of the Bay Harbor project. In my opinion, San Carlos Island and this site are sorely in need of progress. The current land use isn't needed, and I've spoken to several residents that feel they would be affected negatively by the improvements. I disagree with them. The good folks who live nearby off Main Street on streets like Nancy, Emily, and Helen Lane, on Gulf Access waterfront property, many in single wide manufactured homes built as long ago as 1960s, they love their lifestyle. And I get that. It's some great, inexpensive island waterfront living, and it's been that way for a long time. These folks are fiercely protective of their sweet lives. Everybody likes progress, but nobody likes change. I don't think that the traffic will affect them very much. I think it might take them another minute or two to get off of Main Street onto San Carlos Boulevard to get to the grocery store, the Moose Lodge, or wherever they need to go. The fact that Lee County staff is in support of the project, the owners have been compromising in good faith since 2015. I really hope you will approve the proposed settlement and move forward with this. And thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Margie Titus, followed by, looks like Lacia Nicholas? Lucia, okay, gotcha. Lucia, sorry.
Good morning, gentlemen. Nice to see you again.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. My name is Margie Titus. I've been a resident of San Carlos Island for 31 years. I've lived on, around, or off of Main Street during that time. I've owned several pieces of property along the proposed project area. Again, a lot of these people are friends, co-workers, customers. I've worked for the Simmer family off and on for years. I've worked for Nick Rulin and his wife for years, and being in the hospitality, I've had an opportunity to enjoy these people as not just customers and clients, but friends and neighbors. Again, I'll say I'm very sad that there's such a divisiveness, if you will, about this project. But many, many years ago, when people who really, truly know me, many people know this about me, I adopted a mantra. It was not mine originally, but I adopted it. And I have it posted in my home, where I see it the first thing of a morning and the last thing of an evening. And it says, I am committed to make a difference every day. And trust me, in my 31 years on this island, I know I've made a difference. Not only in my personal life, in my professional life, in my home, in my community, and especially on Oak Street, where I currently live now, with some of the Simmer family that comes up within that 100, 200 feet of this project. I make it a priority every day to make that difference. And having said that, I feel that these developers are diligently trying to make a huge difference in our community. I've lived off of Main Street, as I mentioned, 31 years. The only changes in Main Street in 31 years, besides the properties perhaps that the Simmer business and residences have been, Hurricane Charlie, which did a massive amount of damage, especially to the project property they're talking about, and the Key West Express property, as well as the Salty Sam. Because Salty Sam, again, part of that ebb tide situation. Salty Sam's has beautiful property down there and great opportunities for employees, other employers, residences to visit their properties, as well as it being a vacation destination. When I purchased my Oak Street property 18 years ago, because I lived on Nancy Lane off of Main before that, I was promised assistance with securing lighting for my Oak Street property. 18 years later, I still have no lighting on that street. I still live on the same side. On the private road side, there are no lighting there. It's dark. You've got shrimpers living behind my property. I've been to see Grant and Erickson many times about that. Sometimes it isn't safe. For the most part, I've had pretty good luck with most of the people back there, but it continues to be a problem with shrimpers living behind my property. Okay, now those are people that maybe don't have opportunities to have housing and afford housing, and I get that. But sometimes it's not safe, and lighting is a huge thing with me. There's also not great lighting along Main Street. And you talk about Main Street with no changes in 31 years. The water drainage is terrible. The opportunity for mosquito infestation is terrible. It isn't safe for pedestrians to walk Main Street at night. I mean, there are many things, many reasons why this project could help us in that area. I believe that these developers have spent untold amounts of money, time, energy, and resources to accommodate the neighbors and businesses surrounding this project. As others in our area have had their opportunity to do so, I believe with the new changes presented, it's time to let Bay Harbor make a difference in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, this will be our last speaker. Come on up before we take a brief recess. Good morning. How you doing?
Thank you. My name is Lucia Nicholson, and I live in 70 Emily Lane. I think that the project, I'm all for it. I think it will be a safer place to, like for myself, I'm older, like bike riding, walking towards the evenings. It's kind of dangerous to do so nowadays. We can improve the roads. I mean, growth is okay. changes are okay. And I'm all for it if we can go on with this plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take a recess till 11:15, and we'll reconvene at that time. Thank you very much.
Check your phone. Oh, check your phone.
Okay. We'll resume, pick up right where we left off in public comment. The next speaker I'd like to call is Suzanne Schott, followed by Jane Plummer.
There he is.
You're going to love me. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Suzanne Schott. I live on 299 Denora Boulevard, Fort Myers Beach, Florida. I've been a resident here for 17 years. I've been watching the progress on this development for the past 5 years. I feel they have made significant reduction to the development. I feel that it would be a huge asset to the community and benefit the area. I'm at 100% in favor of the development, and I hope you vote for it today.
Thank you very much. We've got next speaker is Jane Plummer, followed by Calvin Clayton. Oh, what's that? Oh, Calvin had to leave? Okay. All right. Well, we'll be pleased to hear from you. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Jane Plummer. I have been a resident on Fort Myers Beach for 30 years. I own 2 properties on San Carlos Island. One is at 70 Emily Lane, and one is at 1599 Main Street. I'm on the LPA on the town of Fort Myers Beach for the last 15 years, and I'm the manager at the existing facility at the property site. There is a huge need for housing, and especially rental housing. The plan is to have this be rental property instead of buying it. I mean, having it become condominiums and selling it off and having individual owners. This is really for residential use, for people to be members of our community, and we need that drastically. You can't hardly find an annual rental anywhere on San Carlos Island or on Fort Myers Beach, and like for the only annual rental I was able to find before coming here was a 1-bedroom for $1,700 a month, and so it is certainly not brand new. So new construction would be wonderful for people to have choices to have. The housing development will make other rental properties step up their conditions in their rental properties, which will be a win-win for all renters here. And the storage facility is badly needed. All the communities around it, the surrounding neighborhoods, use it to keep their boats and their trailers and things like that, because on all these mobile home parks don't have big driveways with room for all these things. So it's needed to keep the other areas clean and free of debris for hurricanes. And so it's the nice thing about having the boat and parking garage there. It will keep everybody's property high and dry and not visible from the street, which will beautify the area tremendously. The developer, change is always hard for everybody. And I remember on Fort Myers Beach when Publix and the movie theater came in, tons of people were against it, thought it would just be horrible for the island. And you ask anybody today, and they can't live without Publix. And of course, if you're a movie person, they couldn't live without the movie theater. But change is always hard for people to accept. There are many empty buildings along San Carlos Boulevard, about 30 from the bridge out to Summerlin, that are just sitting empty, collecting mold and everything else. And they need the stimulus of that new 75 units that will come in and bring businesses, bring life back into that community, and support businesses and maybe fill up those businesses with businesses of their own. It's definitely a blighted area the whole way coming down San Carlos Island from turning off of Summerlin. Let's see. And the developer is ready, willing, and able to start this project now. He is not here to get the development rights and wait for somebody else to do it 10 to 15 years from now. He's ready, willing, and able to start right now, and it's time to clean up this area and improve Main Street and the safety of San Carlos Island. And I'm 100% for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me just double check. Calvin, are you here? Calvin Clayton? Okay, he's gone. All right, well, very good. Let's call up, looks like Maurice Gingrich, and then Paul Iacobelli will be next. Morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
My name is Maurice Gingrich. I live on Nancy Lane on San Carlos Island. I'm here to tell you that I am okay with the project on this property, but I'm not okay with this project on this property. A 100-foot tall building does not fit on San Carlos Island. It's way out of character, and it's just too much, as we've talked about before. Too much, too tall for the space. Forgot what I was going to say. Almost all the people that I've heard here stand up and are for this project are business people. They're here to protect their wallet and their savings account. We actually live here. We're here to protect our future and our neighborhood. I've heard the word our little piece of paradise more than once today. And when I moved here, it's my little piece of paradise too. But I don't want to live in a paradise that's gone the way of Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and that's the direction we're headed. So I hope that you can deny this project. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments today. Paul Iacobelli, followed by Arnie Sanz.
I'm here today in opposition to this project. I've been in opposition to this from the get-go. And it's my hope to hear today that you guys will vote it down for the third time. Thank you.
We've got Arnie Sanz, followed by Janet Sanz.
Good morning. My name is Arnie Sanz. About 15 years ago, prior to retiring, my wife and I started traveling all over Florida. We have son and grandkids that live in Fort Lauderdale. We stayed in that area. We went to the Keys, but after 5 years of traveling, we fell in love with Fort Myers Beach and San Carlos Island, and we bought in 2010, and then 5 years back, we permanently moved down from Wisconsin. And since that time, we've seen so much development on the island, new homes going up, restaurants, marinas, DYS, Gulfstar Marina, all these things happening. And my wife and I do a lot of biking and hiking, and one of the favorite places to bike and hike is Main Street. And right now on Main Street, especially when we bring our grandkids, you've got one lousy sidewalk, very bumpy, then you run into some sand, you have to go out on the road. It looks to me like if this project goes through, which I'm hoping, because that's an ugly area right now, that road is going to be redeveloped, and it looks to me like new areas on each side of the street for safe biking and hiking. So I'm for the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Janet Sanz, followed by Peter Ennis, it looks like.
Hi, I'm Janet Sanz, and I live on San Carlos Drive. And it has, for a decade, and it has changed dramatically. There has been big investment, and it's almost as though San Carlos Island is now divided into two parts. You have all of these new up-to-code buildings on San Carlos Drive. You've got the first in the world fully automated boat marina, I forgot the name of it, the Gulfstar Marina. First in the world, totally automated. Then you cross the street and it's blight. I can't ride with the grandchildren. It's way too dangerous. And I guess I don't understand the argument it's out of character. I don't know how you match blight unless you broke a couple of windows, because this isn't a lot of character. This is a lot of old, dilapidated, aging infrastructure. And what San Carlos needs is a main street, where, kind of like Old McGregor, where you've got bike paths on either side, and trees, and it's safe, and it's lit, and it's inviting. And I think this is exciting. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter Ennis, followed by Tracy Gore.
Good morning. My name is Peter Ennis, and I've been a resident of Lee County for nearly 30 years. When I first moved here, I ran Backwaters Restaurant just off San Carlos Island near at Diebold Marina, next to Getaway. When I look at San Carlos Island now, there's not a lot of change. The main street, there's not a lot of business. There's not many more businesses than there were, probably less. So I'm all in favor of Bay Harbor moving forward and trying to upgrade the entire island to bring more jobs, to bring boating to Lee County. I currently own a restaurant out in Estero called Beef O'Brady's. I've been there 18 years, and we've seen a lot of change. I know a lot of people speak of small roads and change coming. Well, we all have our piece of paradise wherever we live, whether it's out Corkscrew Road or down on the beach. And the other two restaurants I'm involved in are Snug Harbor on Fort Myers Beach and the Ragged Ass Saloon. So yes, as a business owner, I think it's very important for all these people that are moving down to Lee County and moving to Southwest Florida to give them some opportunity to use boat access, whether maybe it's a townhome, jobs. Obviously, this would be someone mentioned earlier about the millions of dollars just in building the property, let alone the jobs that it'll increase. The upgraded, from what the last couple just spoke about, it sounds like Main Street will be upgraded because of this project. And I've been up and down Main Street for many years, and it sure needs it. And what a nice addition it would be when you turned off onto Main Street to go down to either this project or Salty Sam's or wherever it might be. But it sure would be a nice increase. Just like I said earlier, yeah, the visual of the island itself sure would be nice to have some newer buildings, more opportunity for business, and to keep the property values up and to keep the residents happy on the island. I really think that the county should be 100% behind this project, so it'll help me not only as a business person but as a Lee County resident for nearly 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tracy Gore, followed by Nello Cerndia.
Good morning. Tracy Gore, Fort Myers Beach. I've worked with all of you besides Sandelli. I've never met you, but I worked with all you guys when I was the mayor of Fort Myers Beach. I want to remind everybody, in 2015, my town, there was a huge development that was proposed. And in the news press, I can send you all the article, the mayor at the time said, oh, the people of Fort Myers Beach are passionate about this because they were upset. And a former commissioner here came back and said, no, they're not passionate. They're angry. So I'm just going to tell you, the people that stood up, they are angry and they're passionate because this is their town. My family has property here. I have family property here. I have a business here on San Carlos Island. What was approved in 2008, the same owner today was happy with what was approved in 2008, just never built it for whatever reason. And to say that's not economically viable for the boat, it was the Compass Rose Boat Club, that's not true because you have Diversified now and you have Gulf Star, and they're both also boat slips for dry storage. So it is economically viable. I have a question that you might want to check with your attorney on the public notice. It doesn't include 821 Oak Street as part of the hearing. but yet in the report, that's part of the request for the comp plan amendment. And I'm going to speak to the comp plan amendment, not the zoning, because they're two different issues. And I'm sorry I went to the bathroom when you were given the spiel of what you want us to do. But anyhow, they talk about like the residential properties here. Residential is not allowed now because it's industrial. That's a new use. That's a brand new use. And to say that we need these annual residential, nobody can guarantee that's annual because you guys don't have a rule that says it has to be annual. You're allowed to have vacation rentals there. It could be nightly rentals because I don't believe an unincorporated Lee County allows that. I remember when the town of Fort Myers Beach became a town, we only became a town because San Carlos Island opted to get out. Every time San Carlos Island was part of us, we lost. We lost the vote to incorporate. Once San Carlos Island said, nope, we'd rather be under the county government, that's when the town barely became incorporated. So these people are on San Carlos Island because they don't want these types of things to happen. They don't want the government coming in and changing all the rules on them. The other thing I want to tell you is in the special magistrate, it's wrong. It says in here on your special magistrate that 34,000 square feet of prior development order, special exception variances was already approved. That is incorrect. The only document you should be looking at compared to the new proposal is of 2008, because in 2008, that approval rescinded everything. In 2008, included all properties that are in this proposal besides the 821 Oak Street. That's the only one that it didn't include. It's in, like I said, it's in there now, but it wasn't part of the public notice. I also want to note that for the comprehensive, your staff report, somebody came up here and said the staff, they approved this. Your report says the staff did not approve it. The staff was willing to bring the settlement in front of you. So it's not that your staff says, hey, approve this. They said, we're willing to bring this in front of the commissioners again to see if we can negotiate. That's what that was. It also, in the comp plan, in the staff report, the staff report states that the county prefers to preserve land in the industrial development future land use to reduce the weakening of the county's economic base. The report goes on to say the applicant is requesting residential development on approximately 7.47 acres, which can be accommodated by the residential allocation in Table 1B. If you change the use from industrial to mixed use, residential is now by right. And you're going to lose the flavor of San Carlos Island. The Compass Rose Boat Club that the applicant today was approved for in 2008, it's a great plan. The community supported it. Remember, in that area, you can have 35 foot. But because of the hurricane, a previous county commission gave them 55 foot. Then they came back in 2008 and said, we'd like to go 65 foot. So it's like the county keeps giving this property owner a hand up, a hand up, and a hand up. We're getting to the point where it's becoming a government hand out, and that's got to stop.
Thanks, Ms. Gore. Okay, Neld Cerndia, followed by Ted Ney, and I think Mr. Ney had to leave, he said.
Hello, my name is Nello Cerndia. I've been on San Carlos Island for 26 years. I'm definitely, I look around and I have a lot of friends and a lot of neighbors, and some people are on this side, some people are on that side. All you have to do is feel how you feel. And I feel, my opinion is that this would be very beneficial, this project. You know, my thoughts are if you're not making progress, you're falling behind. I'm so tired of driving over Fort Myers Beach Bridge and looking over at the alley that they're fighting Mr. Torgelson on. And I'd like to see progress be made. You know, everyone in this room had the opportunity to buy this piece of land and do what they want with it, and they didn't buy it. So the people that bought it, I think they've made some nice concessions, and I think you can't hold back progress. We got diversified, you got Gulf Star Marina, Torgelson just bought the marina across from this project, and I think change is good. So I hope today you vote yes for it. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. And just double checking, Ted Ney, are you here? All right. Will you raise your hand if you want to speak and you haven't spoken already then? Okay, seeing no other speakers, I'll go ahead and close public comment on the comprehensive plan amendment portion. Real quick, Mr. Jacob, could you address just a couple questions before we go to rebuttal? On the public notice, have you looked into that?
I was looking at it now. I don't see any issue with the notice that we provided for both hearings.
Okay, so the public notice is okay. It checks out. Very good. And then one other thing, just real quick before we go into the rebuttal. Mr. Salyer, does the staff recommend approval?
Well, Commissioner, the staff is willing to present this as was stated for the Commission's consideration and does indeed recommend approval.
Okay, yeah, because the staff report said that the staff recommends approval.
Yes.
So, okay, very good. Just clarifying those two statements. Okay, then let's call up Mr. Schropp for a brief rebuttal and then board discussion.
Actually, I'll let Mr. Dr.
Okay, very good.
For the record again, Dave Depew. Commissioners, I just have a couple of very small little items that I want to present to you on rebuttal, very specifically. The first I want to talk a little bit about is the federal channel that was referenced during Ms. Semmer's testimony. The federal channel is 14 feet. She's absolutely correct, but it's on the south side of San Carlos Island. The channel getting to this particular marina has a 4-foot depth at its lowest point. It's not 14, it's 4. So the idea that a shrimp boat is going to use this particular facility is just not feasible. It's not going to happen. They're not going to dredge over the miles and miles of shallow channel to get a 14-foot depth back to this canal, which, like I say, is a 4-foot depth. So that 14-foot is a little bit misleading. That is only for the south side, and that's the area that is the waterfront industrial side. It's nothing about this has impacted that, and in fact, the water-dependent use on this property is still water-dependent, which is the marina operation. The second thing I'd like to point out to you is about the design, and it's clear on this slide up here. If you look at the existing approval, this yellow area here is the boat barn. If you look at the distance that this boat barn is off of Main Street, you can see it's right smack up on Main Street. When you go to the 2016 version, which is the first one that came through here, that building there, which, as I think Ms. Gore mentioned, originally was 55 feet, is now up to 65 feet. That building footprint reflects that footprint there that's in the existing approval and the 65-foot height. That's a 65-foot height right there, and it reflects what's on that existing approval. One of the complaints we got was that you put that right on this canal, you've got these boat barn operations, we've got residential across the street, and so one of the things we did, which was one of the things that everybody approved originally, was we put these townhomes along the canal so that there was a buffer, an actual structural buffer that also provides a blockage for anyone. If you look at the sight lines, when you look at the sight lines up here, it blocks the view, for the most part, of this building from over here on the east side of the canal on these Oak Street homes. And what has happened here as well is you see this distance in front of the boat barn to Main Street has increased substantially. That's now, it's 57 feet out to here, and it's another like 25 or 30 feet, something like that, in here where the forklift operations occur. So that building is considerably reduced over the building that is existing now on the existing approval. So the overall massing of this building is not just that things have come down, but also that it's shrunk. It's shrunk on the backside because it's actually about 80 feet off of this back property line as opposed to the 50 that would be required. So it's shrunk back there. You can't really see it from this perspective, but it's shrunk considerably off of Main Street. So that's the second point that I'd like to make. The third point, well, actually, there's 4 points. The third point I would like to make is about parking. I believe Mr. White talked about parking, and at the special magistrate hearing, a request was made about parking calculations. And I must admit, and I will apologize this, I gave an incorrect figure because I was speaking off the top of my head, and I said that I believe that the calculated parking rate was 417 spaces based on what's being proposed here. And I have to tell you, I was wrong. The calculated parking rate is 419 spaces. When I got back to my office, I redid that, and I actually produced a spreadsheet, which was then provided to staff for their review. I don't know whether they've looked at it or not, but my calculations going straight through the land development code for the specific uses here is that the required parking under the land development code will be 419 spaces. And finally, just as a minor point here, this is the ebb tide project when it was presented. Those are the 230-foot tall buildings that were presented. And Ms. Semmer indicated at the Hex testimony, sworn testimony, that she was absolutely in full support of a 230-foot tall set of buildings, which, as you see, are massive. These things are urban development directly out of any urban setting you want. And what we're talking about here is not even close to that. We're talking about something that is much less in scale, it's much lower in scale. The reduction in dwelling units has been significant. As I said, the overall traffic has been reduced. The amount of new trips have been reduced by over a third as a proposal here. And it's really, as I said, about as reasonable a presentation as I've seen. There's really, as I said, there's no muscle left to cut on this. We're down to the bone at this point. But we believe that it can work, and we believe that it can be a rather important effort at the redevelopment of San Carlos Island. If you've got questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Mr. Depew. Do we, I should say doctor, right? Do we have any questions for the applicant at all? Commissioner Pendergrass?
David, can you talk to us about traffic as far as like improvements in the area of, along Main Street and what improvements would come? I know that'd be done during the development stages if approved today. But
yes, sir.
What kind of improvements would be required?
One of the conditions is the reconstruction of Main Street in accordance with the development code minimums up to the eastern edge of the property, as well as a donation of the frontage of the property, which would include area for a pullout of Letran, a bus stop as well. And I might add the setbacks are going from the area of expanded right-of-way and not from the existing right-of-way. So they're actually, if you count them from the existing right-of-way, they're even a little bit larger. So all of those are intended to be part of the reconstruction.
It would also include sidewalks, bicycle paths?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that. That was one of the questions I had, too. Any other questions then, Commissioners? No? All right. Thank you very much. All right, Commissioners, at this time, if it's time for board discussion, if you have any questions for our staff, or does anybody wish to make a motion?
Go ahead. So thank you, everybody, being here on both sides today. It's obviously been a long process for some people, 12 years, and the last 5 years has gone through a lot. And I hope you understand the position I am in, or at least the board is in now, where this is the third time it's come back to us. And at the end of the day, I personally rather have some input here and have the public involved like this and have this discussion. And, on both sides, I know some people feel like they won today and some people feel like they lost probably. But at the end of the day, there's been so much concessions made on both sides over the last 5 or 6 years. I think I'd rather have that discussion here like we're doing here today than having to go across the street in a circuit court. I've seen cases in the past where it's gone across the street and it comes back to us and it goes from 100 foot back to 150, 160, or 200 feet when there's a judge across the street making that decision. And then today, we as taxpayers are also paying for that. And a year later, you still lose. So at the end of the day, I think I understand there's some pain with some changes in the island, but we see redevelopment coming here, and that's why I feel comfortable making the motion to move this item forward based upon the staff's recommendations.
Okay. So we have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass and a second from Commissioner Manning. Our county attorney, you're recognized for a comment.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, the motion before you is to adopt the small-scale amendment. We will bring the second portion of this, which is the 7051 part. That's the next hearing. So the motion would be to adopt the comprehensive plan amendment.
Correct. So the motion maker is motioning for approval of the staff recommendation on the comprehensive plan amendment. Correct.
And that'd be my motion.
And that is your second as well. Okay. So, and again, the motion was from Commissioner Pendergrass, the second's from Commissioner Manning. Do we have any discussion on this item? No? You know, the one thing I'll take away from this is I listened very deeply to the public comment, and this is always a hard day when you have neighbor versus neighbor. This is not one of the fun ones, and of course we're in an era in our society right now where we're all very divided, and I really feel badly about that. The answer on the street improvements came. That was one of the arguments I was very sympathetic to. But the other thing that I'm very sympathetic to is the argument for revitalization out here. It is an area that certainly is crying out for redevelopment and revitalization, and is a gateway to probably our biggest tourist attraction. It's right up there. Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach actually go back and forth every year with their haul in tourism development tax dollars. And I think this is a project where there have been a lot of concessions made, and I appreciate the fact that we've been able to work back and forth on this, so I'm going to support the motion. So, with that, then, Commissioner Sandelli, you have a comment?
I just echo some of your comments. You know, change is a part of, seems like every day here, you know, and it's not easy. It's especially when you have neighbors, you know, on one side or the other. And so that's a big challenge, and I do think that the only way you get to a solution is when people talk to one another, and nobody's going to get one side or the other. There's always a compromise, and I think there's been some good faith compromise here on everybody's part. I think in the end, you know, it comes down to finally a point where we can go forward. It was interesting of one of the comments today that, you know, I get up every morning and look to make a change every day, and I think this is a time to make a change. So I would support it.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay. Any further comments then? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'll just simply say that this proposal before us today is certainly better than any that's been here before. But I can't escape what my main concern was from day one, and it was brought out. One of the presenters this morning mentioned that this is the worst road in Lee County. Certainly in December through February, I would attest to that. I've got dear friends that I never see that live at Fort Myers Beach because I just don't go there because of the awful traffic. This is going to exacerbate that no matter how you look at it. And I feel that's a punishment to the good people that live down there, and I can't support it.
All right. Any further comments then? All right. Seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. Are there any objections to the motion? Okay. I show one objection, Commissioner Mann. The motion carries 4-1. All right. Let me turn it over to Mr. Salyer or Mr. Jacob. What is the next portion of today's hearing?
This is the hearing to consider the recommendation from the special magistrate in the 7051 process. Before the board, the special magistrate has provided the recommendation with proposed conditions of approval for the zoning aspect of the property. This case, if approved by the board, would effectively approve the zoning conditions and approval that are attached to the recommendation. It is a public hearing. There are no public participants as you would have in a normal zoning case, so it is open up to the public for anybody to participate. This is like your normal agenda items in the board meeting. It's a 3-minute time frame.
Okay, so 3-minute time frame on this one, and it is open to the public to speak?
Correct.
Very good. All right, and we just follow the same rules as we do a normal zoning. We'll give the applicant a chance to speak. We'll take the public comment and then a rebuttal and then back to board discussion.
Normally that would be the case. However, Dr. Depew and Mr. Schropp have indicated that they put their presentation all up front. So at this time, staff doesn't have any more presentation for you unless you have questions from staff or the county attorney's office. And unless Russell has anything really to add, open up their public comment.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. Staff, would you like to add anything on this?
Mr. Chair, I think simply that staff recommends approval here as well and is available to answer questions.
Okay, very good. And anybody have questions for our staff at this time? Okay, seeing none, then let me ask, does the applicant wish to say anything at this time?
No, but I'll get up here to say we have nothing to say at this time. Russell Schropp representing the applicant. We basically made our presentation as part of the first hearing, and rather than repeat it all here, we'll simply rest on that. And
very good.
Appreciate if there's any questions, I'm happy to address it.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Mr. Schropp.
And if I could have the opportunity for rebuttal at the end if needed. Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so at this time, we'll turn it over to public comment. I'm not sure, because we got one set of cards with folks. I'm not sure if people wanted to speak on this issue as well. So could you just, by a show of hands, raise your hand if you'd like to speak in public comment? Okay, let's start in the back with the Simmers. And Ms. Gore, if you guys would start first, go ahead and line up, and then we'll move through the rest of the crowd. Or you know what, actually, if it's okay. Oh, really? Well, maybe somebody could turn the sound up if that's okay so that people can hear us in the room. I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and call the cards again, and if you wish to speak, you're welcome to. And if not, it's okay to also say that you decline as well. Does Tyler Gribb wish to speak? Okay. Does Gail Mason wish to speak? Okay. Does Paula Kiker wish to speak? Okay, I think she left. Billy Simmer, do you wish to speak? Okay, you're welcome to come say that on the record. Morning again.
Good morning again. Just so it's on record, I'm opposed to it.
Thank you very much. Bradley Glover, do you wish to speak? Yes. Okay, come on forward.
Yeah, my name is Brad Glover. I've been involved in this since 2015, and I've gone through all the meetings and testified several times. The one thing I've kind of learned from the whole process is that when you go in front of a hearing examiner, the planning department lets a developer present what they want, and it fits into a certain amount of things, and there's a parameter there. So if the planning department approves something and agrees with the planner, they represent it to the hearing examiner. Hearing examiner is a person who goes through everything and says, this will work. Now, there's been a lot of changes made and a lot of cutbacks, but don't we need another hearing examiner to oversee this and go through that process where the public has input, and then you have a professional person to give you a decision one way or the other as where it's approved or not approved? It seems to me like this should be sent back to a hearing examiner and this process be ran on these codes. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Let me call up would Nicholas White, would you like to speak?
I'd just like to say I don't think the interests of the people of Southwest Florida were served here this morning. And I'm not necessarily faulting the commissioners. I think this process is a travesty. There's basically no way that citizens can win these disputes anymore. And I know that if this is built, there'll be precedents set that are destructive to San Carlos Island. And I think one of them is that you have now told the Russell P. Schropps of the Southwest Florida that it's open season just go ahead and threaten to sue and file one of these ridiculous no-holds-barred suits, and you get what you want. I think it's a travesty. I'm sorry, but that's what I think. And furthermore, that I only got 5 minutes. I had facts, I had figures I would have liked to have given you, gentlemen, this morning for your deliberation that I think are important to whether we should do this or shouldn't, but you didn't want to hear them. And I'm hurt by that. I think you need to consider that the people that live here are not always stupid. They're not obstructionists. We want development on San Carlos Island, but we don't want this kind of stuff. We can't have it. It's dangerous. You're going to see people being hit on their bikes. I'm not kidding you. It's dangerous down there already. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. White. Okay. Joanne Simmer, would you like to speak? Okay. And then I'll ask Henry Blakely next.
Hello, Joanne Simmer. I just want to defend San Carlos Island to a point that we do have areas that don't look good, shabby areas, especially in San Carlos Boulevard, and that's because Lee County staff has not done their job. We have areas that are in violation, there's dangerous buildings, there's grass growing up, and I've called and filed complaints with Lee County Code Enforcement, and they do absolutely nothing. It's dangerous. Some of the buildings are dangerous. It's the Joe Orlandini properties there on San Carlos Boulevard, and I can't get Lee County Code Enforcement to do anything. There's other properties that are in violation, and Lee County Code Enforcement does nothing. It's just like this property here. They allow it to look shabby. The owners let it be shabby, so people say, well, give them what they want, so at least it'll look better. Lee County DOT does not maintain our roads. They don't maintain our sidewalks. They don't maintain our drainage. What do we do? And that's why people come up and say, well, we've got to do something so it can look better. I don't understand. As for the canal is not made for shrimp boats. We wanted to maintain the industrial area for the related businesses. San Carlos Island working waterfront generates almost $100 million a year in economic impact with commercial fishing. But they had net making shops. They have repair shops. They have to work on their engines. They have to work on their electronics. We used to have those kind of businesses on that property before Jack Mayer tore them all down and kicked the people out. I mean, other parts of the state love their working waterfronts, but not Lee County. We can't get Lee County to help us with anything. It's just so frustrating. As for the rezoning, I'm against the rezoning. And again, the 30,000 square feet of commercial retail office already approved for 34,000 square feet by prior development order, that is wrong. And I don't know why you don't ask staff to fix it. And I can't see how it can go forward when it's wrong. You guys are all really smart. Don't you read your reports? Do you read your reports at all? I just don't understand. And this, as Nick White said, people are going to die because of this project. And their blood is going to be on each of you that approved it. This is terrible. You're tearing out the fiber and the fabric of a small fishing village. And like I said, other parts of the state of Florida, they love their fishing villages. They see it as part of the community, but you guys don't. And as for, thank you.
Okay, Henry Blakely, would you like to speak? No. William Simmer, would you like to speak? Okay, and then Charlie Whitehead would be after that.
Again, my name is Bill Simmer. When this project first got going, it was going to be a marina. We all got behind it. We're all for taking down the old marina, which has worked very well for us as a community, and the new marina was going to go back up again. That's all changed to what they show you today. Then they said, well, they want what they have, going to have down the road. Down the road, they got the density to do that, 1 for 1. County won't give them 1 extra density. This one has zero density. 0 density. Staff said, we can waiver all of that. I said, how do you waiver all of that? Density. They said, we can do it. We can give them the road. You don't have to have setbacks. I said, how do you do that? They said, we can do it. Well, you tell me how to do it, because I got other projects, and I don't intend to do that. I intend to follow Lee County. I still want to follow back on when I was running off at the mouth at the other stuff about the first meeting, where it was rejected by 93% of the people on the island that didn't want it. And then the second one was the Bellflower report. 5 days the whole community put into that one to listen to everything they had to say. 54 rejections, which were never even looked at by the magistrate. We thought, well, that's it. They said, no, let her retire. And they turned around and they get Mrs. Collins, a wonderful lady, 57 rejections she comes up with. All of that gets thrown to the side. 5 days, again, we all put into it. Rejection, rejection, rejection. And then it comes before you guys. And you guys say that staff and attorneys aren't going to override your hearing examiners. They turn around and you reject it. Then it comes back up. They get a hired gun with a couple of attorneys. And they wrote that. He didn't write it. He wouldn't even talk to us. He turned around, give us to a county attorney. We got all our response from a county attorney, not from him. And he wouldn't read anything we gave him from Bellflower, wouldn't read anything we gave him from Collins. He said, nope, his mind was made up. County attorneys are writing what we're doing. So everything that you see is put together by county staff and attorneys, not by him. So if that's all it takes to override you guys, to just go have enough money to go hire me a hired gun to sit up there and say, hey, I approve everything, then you tell us that's the way it's going to be. And then Lee County can follow those rules and regulations, because all the rest of us are following all the other rules and regulations put together by the county out there that I respect, and I've been working 50 years doing it with all of you guys and all the respect of Lee County. And I appreciate it that if you follow your own rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Charlie Whitehead, would you like to speak?
Gentlemen, I could come up here and argue against this thing all over again. I've done that numerous times, but it looks to me like y'all done turned the horse out of the barn already. So I do want to make a couple of points, if I may. There was some talk about the road improvements. There will be nothing done to San Carlos Boulevard or to Main Street past the edge of this project unless you guys make it happen. That's an unincorporated Lee County road, and it is in piss-poor shape. If you're going to allow building back there, I think it's your responsibility to do something about that road. On those same lines, y'all remember the San Carlos Boulevard project. It was approved by the MPO as a state project. Y'all were waiting for it to come along. When y'all are asked to approve the plan at the MPO in the coming meeting, you're going to find out, which you probably already know, is that all of the improvements are on the 2 bridges and on the town end of the San Carlos Boulevard. Nothing is being done to the most of San Carlos Boulevard by that state project. There is work that needs to be done for that community, especially if you're going to load more residential units down there, which we just did. Those roads are in bad shape. They're your roads. Well, San Carlos is a state road, but they're yours to look after, and nobody's looking after them. I'd like for you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Catherine Young, would you like to speak? She's gone. All right, Howard Wheeler? No. Larry Cripps? Okay. Denise Knudsen? I don't see her. Okay. Margie Titus? Okay. Lucia Nicholson. Would you? No, thank you? Okay. Okay. Suzanne Schott. Okay. Jane Plummer.
You guys keep this place really cold.
Keeps us awake.
Jane Plummer for the record. I just want to respond to the working waterfront. We have plenty of room for netters or engine repair or whatever to be working in our storage facility. There's no interest. They aren't out there. They moved long ago, and that business is not existing on the island. So to keep this island not functioning because it's a fishing village, the Simmers were actually involved with the project at Gulf Coast University that developed an entire video about how the dying fishing industry is going out of business. So to say, let's keep this all going out of business for the rest of us doesn't make sense. It's time to move on. The fishing village isn't there at that location. And as far as the one-on-one at Ebb Tide, as we all know, the 450 hotel rooms was not part of the density, nor was the 850 boat slips. So there's a lot more there than this project is asking for. And I thank you for your approval of it earlier and hope you approve this now. Thanks.
Thank you. And you were Jane Plummer, right? Yes. Okay, very good. Calvin Clayton, I think he's still gone. Maurice Gingrich. Maurice, did you want to say anything? He might be gone. Paul Iacobelli, would you like to say anything?
I'd just like to say, for all the reasons stated earlier, I'm still in opposition to this, and I'd like to thank Commissioner Mann for his position. Thank you.
Thank you. Arnie Sones, I think they might have taken off. Janet Sones. Peter Ennis, would you like to say anything? He looks like he's not here. Tracy Gore, would you like to say anything?
Brian, can I give you guys something?
Could you give it to the clerk? Just because all the paper passing and stuff right now.
Tracy Gore, I just handed her the 2008 approval and then the requested extra stuff from today so that you can see the difference if you want to look at it before you guys make up your mind for the rezonings. I have to say something about the fishing industry. Since I own a shrimp boat and I'm in the commercial fishing industry, we are alive and well. I do very well. I pay my quarterly taxes. There is a net man because I pay the net man. I pay the diesel mechanic. I pay all these people that work on my shrimp boats. They are alive and well. They're not a dying breed. It keeps me, in a home, and we do very well. So I don't know why she would say that. She doesn't live over there, and she doesn't have a commercial fishing industry business. The rezoning, I wish you guys would look at, again, the 34,000 square feet prior development order. That is incorrect. It should not be there. Hopefully that if you're going to allow the residential, maybe you can put on there that you're going to put restrictions on if it can be nightly. Do something to protect that neighborhood because that is down a residential canal. So now that you're changing the use, all this industrial stuff is now going to be residential. Protect the people down that canal that live there. The people that live on San Carlos Island, including my Uncle Bill, he came back from Vietnam, bought a piece of property, built a business, followed all the rules, didn't ask for any government handout, didn't ask for anything extra, did everything the right way. The fishing industry, all of us, we follow the rules and the regulations. None of you would be able to make it. If you can't make it following the rules and regulations with Lee County put in books today, you would never make it in the fishing industry because we were regulated to death federally, statewide, locally. But we follow the rules and we make it. And so they're frustrated because you've got generations of people in Lee County following the rules, building up this great county, and people coming in and wanting to change it to something else. It's frustrating because we have a wonderful county here. We love our heritage. We love our history. We love our fishing industry. We love everything about it. We love you, Frank Mann. Everybody wishes you were our elected official in our communities. But I hope that when you look at the rezoning, that you don't let it go to 100 foot. This is where we're talking about, take it back to the 65 foot that was previously approved and everybody was behind. When it comes to the residential, make them follow the same setback that my cousin had to follow when he just built his brand new house on the same canal. So everybody else is following these rules and regulations. It's not fair to give one you can't take away property rights from everybody else to give one person extra property rights. Again, that's a government handout, and it's not fair. That's not what America is built on. Thank you.
Thank you. Nello, are you here? Cerncia? I don't see him. Okay, and Ted Ney said he had to leave as well. Okay, so that concludes all the cards that I have then, so we'll close public comment at this time. Does the applicant wish to say anything?
Russell Schropp on behalf of the applicant. Just 2 quick points in rebuttal, if I may. The request that we're asking you to adopt today for the rezoning as part of the special magistrate's recommendation does include 25 conditions as part of the rezoning that are there to protect the neighborhood and limit the development in accordance with the settlement proposal. These were the conditions originally proposed by staff but have been modified to reflect the revisions that came out of the negotiated settlement after the denial. The second thing is I would like to make an observation about the process that was pursued here. This is a process that is provided by Florida statutes in these kinds of situations so that the parties don't go off rushing into court and provides for a last opportunity to reach a reasonable settlement on terms of the development parameters. And I think the process worked very well here. What we have presented to you is a compromise position that I think you were searching for at the last hearing that does reduce the development parameters, does reduce the height, does more closely conform with the Land Development Code regulations, and so we'd urge your approval at this point. If there's any questions that I can answer specifically as to the conditions of approval or anything else in connection with this, I'd be happy to do that.
Commissioners, any questions at all?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schropp. All right, Commissioners, any questions or discussion? All right. Mr. Jacob, what motion are you looking for here?
At this point, was it either approve or deny or modify the recommendation from the special magistrate?
Okay, Commissioner Manning?
I will approve the special magistrate's recommendation, including the 25
conditions.
Conditions.
Okay, very good. So the motion is from Commissioner Manning. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second is from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Commissioner Pendergrass?
I just want to say thank you for, like I said earlier, everybody's here today. This obviously impacts the community. We do hear you. We are aware of this, and that's why I'm glad we heard the comments about the road improvements. Would there be road improvements coming with this project? And I said years ago, it'd been nice we had the right of way to make that road a 4-lane road. So I would definitely check with DOT to see what improvements can be done in the meanwhile before this project's developed. They will be contributing to it, and they will be paying for this because growth does pay for growth. So part of this project, if it is approved today, will be paying for those improvements.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any further comments? No? All right, then seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. Are there any objections to the motion? Okay, I see one objection. Commissioner Mann objects. Then the motion carries 4-1. And thank you very much, folks, for coming today. And we wish you all a safe summer. Stay safe, and meeting adjourned.